I've been thinking a lot about these dead bees I'm sweeping up on the floor. And for the most part, I don't like sweeping dead bees up because those are my babies and they're not going to make it till spring. And it's just that sense of constant attrition to the hive through winter that these hives have to endure. But lately I've been thinking about it in a different way. I'm just thinking to myself, it doesn't make any sense for these bees to hang on this long. These are obviously winter bees. We're just about midway through March. These are obviously winter bees and they die now. So what's the difference between these bees that are dying now as compared to these guys here, which are still alive and likely make it till spring? What's the difference between the death rate of these bees as they go through winter? As I'm sweeping the floor, why are we finding, a pretty even, steady amount of drop through the winter shed? Nothing more or less. After that initial summer drop, the winter drop through the shed is fairly consistent through the months. So I've been thinking maybe my train of thought has been wrong all this time. And aside from disease, exclude disease from the equation here, because disease will shorten bees' lifespan and put stress in the colony and kill the bees. But aside the disease, I'm thinking as these bees drift out onto the floor and die, they have to be accomplishing something. And what if they're actually generating brood inside these boxes? And maybe for the number of bees that fly out onto the floor dead, maybe there's a proportional amount of brood that's reared inside that colony. Not a lot. I've always argued about brood going on in a winter shed, and I've always argued there is no brood because I never see it coming out of the shed. But I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm considering brood as like sheets. Like what these winter clusters are rearing brood, and I've seen it, but it's very small and very scattered. And I don't consider that as brood rearing. But nevertheless, they are rearing brood. These bees within the winter cluster are creating new bees. They emerge, and these bees are long-lived winter bees, so it doesn't take a lot of bees to replace the dead ones that fly out. Does that make any sense? So these bees that are drifting off onto the floor, they can't simply just be, spending their life, but we're done. They've got to be, I don't know if there's anything to this, but I've always considered a winter cluster going into winter, and there's a lot of debate and argument about how the winter cluster defines itself and how it prepares itself. But the way I see it is these colonies, they prepare their nest full of honey and pollen, but they also prepare themselves with fats and proteins, which is a very valuable resource, and a resource that they use to build brood. And they use that in the spring to help rejuvenate that nest and move them into, get that flip, move them into spring. These bees are drifting off. Maybe they're spending all those resources on themselves, and they put it towards the brood inside this wintering nest. The brood emerges, and those spent bees simply go out and drift off and die because they've tapped their resource. They can't hang on any longer. Just a few thoughts. This isn't anything that is other than thought. Just a beekeeper walking the aisles, just wondering what the hell is going on in here. It's interesting stuff anyways.